Hey everybody, I'm going to show you how to make tomato sauce from the tomatoes. So obviously the first thing you need is tomatoes. The best type of tomatoes to use for making sauce are these Roma type tomatoes, and there's a whole bunch of different varieties of these, but basically they make the best sauce because they have the least amount of watery juice. However, I've got so many tomatoes this year of so many different varieties. It's the end of the season, it's July in South Carolina. I'm going to use basically all the tomatoes I can pick. So these are Gardener's Delight, I got sandwich slicers, beef steaks, I've got all different types of tomatoes, including some heirlooms. I'm going to pick probably about 20 or 30 pounds to make a batch of sauce. In case you can't tell, it's really hot out here. It's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and it's 97 degrees in full sun. I'm just in here picking all the tomatoes that have any amount of ripeness to them. Obviously, they're going to need to be washed. That's a nice thing about this hod design. H-O-D, hod, is basically the water just runs right through. So I can get all the dirty work done out here instead of in the sink. Feels pretty good. And now, all I'm going to be doing is roughly cutting these maybe in half and taking out some of the bad spots in the stems, and I'm putting them in a big pot. Just something like this is all you need to do. Notice how little water there is in these Roma tomatoes. That's good for sauce making. Look at that big purple Cherokee. That's a sandwich tomato, but I've got so many, I'm going to make it into sauce. Travesty, I know. Now here's something else that might surprise you. I'm throwing in some peppers. All different types of peppers. Banana peppers, yellow peppers, green bell peppers. And furthermore, I'm going to throw in a couple handfuls of basil, fresh basil. Just throw it right in there. Every one of those tomatoes, except for a couple of duds, are in this pot. I have no idea how many tomatoes there are, how many pounds of tomatoes there are, but this is a 9-gallon pot, so it's probably about a 5-gallon bucket of tomatoes cut up. The cherry tomatoes I didn't cut up, and I've now just got it on high heat, and I'm going to let it simmer, come up to a slight boil, and I'll show you in a couple minutes after they start to soften. I've had these simmering now for about 10 minutes, and they're just getting soft enough where I can mash them with a potato masher. I'm not trying to get every single little bit of juice out. I'm just trying to get more of the juice to come out and more of the skins to slip off than if I just tried to run them through the mill raw. So the next step is going to be letting this cool and running them through a food mill. Now that these have simmered down, I'm using this food mill, kind of bodged together with some aluminum foil, to separate out the seeds in the skin from the pulp and the juice. So here's our tomatoes. And I've got my assistant helping me here today. Kind of stewed tomatoes. I put them in here. And then she's turning the handle. This is an old-fashioned crank model. And pressing it down into the hopper. And the juice and the pulp, without any seeds, is dripping into there. Mostly seedless juice. And I'm going to boil this to reduce it to tomato sauce. So what we're left with is all these pretty dried skins and seeds, and all of the juice and all of the pulp is down there, and I'm going to bring this to a simmer and just evaporate off as much water as I want to make a nice thick sauce, and then I'll can it. If you're getting a bunch of the scum buildup, just use a slotted spoon to remove it. It's mostly just proteins and I guess just debris, but it'll help it boil off if you remove the scum. I've had the sauce simmering for a couple hours, and you see it's lost a lot of the fluid, and it's really coming down to thicker sauce. Now what I'm going to do is season it with whatever you want, but I'm doing basil, oregano, salt, etc. And then I'm going to can it. And here it is. The last jar, already sealed, sterilized, ready for the pantry. And you know what? All those tomatoes gave me these 3 quart jars and about 3/4 of another quart jar, so less than a gallon of sauce. It's really not worth it if you don't have a lot of tomatoes and time, but let me tell you, the taste of this sauce will blow your mind.